The stabbing of the man in New York is really disturbing, and Sir Keefs, one of the people in the comments, has said, "I'm willing to show my ignorance here, but what is going on at synagogues at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, Sunday morning? Is it a regular religious event? See, I told you I'm ignorant. I'm curious, though, as it's a strange time. So what's going on at that time in the morning?" Well, at that time in the morning, I can't speak for now particularly, but I can speak for what I knew in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when Lubavitch was run by Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who since died, and he was this charismatic leader, and he would hold meetings, congregations of his followers in Crown Heights, when he would give everyone a token dollar, and they would return home often to Stamford Hill, to London, where when I was teaching in a school which was run by Lubavitch. I had a very positive experience of the community, and it was very inclusive, and it helped my Hebrew enormously. But well, maybe because I acquired yet another pronunciation. But it's as I say, it was a very warm community. It was a very insular community, but significantly more open than some of the other Hasidic communities in Stamford Hill that I also got to know at the time, some of whom didn't speak English at all, and communicated and taught exclusively in Yiddish, which is a very vibrant and exciting language, but it isolated people. And there have been stories of people who have taught themselves English and moved out of the community, who have found themselves rejected by the community, by their family, and the tension and the heartache of all that stress. But since the Lubavitch Rebbe's death, I'm not sure who distributes these dollars, or whether anybody does, but I have no doubt that there are still these huge meetings that take place, particularly following the closure of the Sabbath, which would probably be the time when this man was stabbed in Crown Heights. He was stabbed at 2 a.m. on Saturday, the 10th of August, and the attack happened near Eastern Parkway and Kingston Avenue, literally next to the Chabad Lubavitch headquarters in Crown Heights. And the assailant reportedly shouted "Free Palestine" and asked the victim, "Do you want to die?" before stabbing him. He was quickly apprehended by community members and subsequently arrested by the police. The victim himself was hospitalized and is expected to make a full recovery, which is a blessing. But I think this exposes the wider issue of knife crime. I've already suggested that we should be dealing with that by microchipping knives. That's one route in the down which law enforcement can go. We can then keep a record of where knives are, where knives are supposed to be, who bought them, who sold them, and so on. And this is a policy which was efficacious in the past in China, not necessarily a positive experience in China, but it demonstrates that the technology is there and the technology works. But beyond that, I think it's about community outreach, and it's about education, and about particularly getting across the idea that there is no place for anti-Semitism in the world, just as there's no place for Islamophobia, but there is a distinction to be made between the Jewish community and the State of Israel. The two things are not synonymous. And I know many members of the Jewish community who do not support the State of Israel, who question the State of Israel. Those are two different things as well. Who, in President Bush's statement, to question the existence of the State of Israel would be a statement of anti-Semitism, but to question the performance of the people who run the State of Israel is not. That's a perfectly legitimate question about the way a modern state functions, and it's part of our democratic discussion that we would question and hold to account the activities of somebody like Netanyahu. I personally think Netanyahu is appalling, and he is perpetuating a conflict in the region, perhaps to avoid being held to account for his actions, for his inadequacy in keeping the peace, because after all, the terrorist event on October the 7th took place on his watch. And I think the siege of Gaza is an overreaction and an appalling assault on a civilian population, attacking an entire community for the actions and the provocation by one small group, even if that group is the group that has political responsibility in Gaza. And rather than eradicating Hamas, I think Netanyahu has done more to act as a recruiting officer, recruiting sergeant for Palestinian terrorism for the next few decades. I think this is such a mismove, such a misstep, such a catastrophic failure, and it needs to be called out. But the incidents of anti-Semitism around the world, the need to protect synagogues and individuals who might be readily identifiable from mad attacks because people are badly educated, because people are mad, because people have weapons in the street. This is a failure of education, it's a failure of our society, and it's a lot to do with the rampant propaganda on social media. And we need to put across the idea that life is significantly more, and events are significantly more nuanced. Somebody has asked in the comments section, what do I believe in? I believe in conversation. I believe in discussion. I believe in meeting people who don't agree with me, not necessarily so that I can persuade them that what I think is correct, nor necessarily so that they can persuade me what they think is correct, but so that we can become friends, so that we can exchange ideas and agree to disagree even about important things. I can disagree passionately with somebody, but still have a cup of tea with them. I can think they are ridiculous and mad, but still have a cup of tea with them. I would be happy even to, I would be happy even to have a cup of tea with Suella Braverman. There you are. You see, I put it on the table there with the teaspoon. Even if Mr. Putin were alive, I'd be happy to have a cup of tea with him, even with the fear that it might be laced with something. But the only way forward is conversation, is discussion, and to get away from this idea that we belong to teams. We don't belong to teams, we belong to one team, humanity. And, like Daniel Radcliffe singing The Brotherhood of Man, or like Imelda Staunton in Hello, Dolly, singing the anthem about freedom in the dress shop as a distraction. It's not a distraction. That is the real thing. The care for others, the care for orphans, the care for motherhood, the care for children, the care for security and safety. Those are the things that matter. And everything else is a distraction. And this xenophobic, often right-wing obsession with tribalism. It doesn't matter if you correct the reality, if you say, well, this isn't actually what happened. Nobody cares. We saw in the Southport riots. Nobody cared in those riots about the identity of the assailant. And that is fundamentally a problem, because people don't listen. They don't care. They're locked in their own idée fixe. What we need to do is to sit down and have tea. We may not change people's minds, and that doesn't matter. What we need is to explore and expose our humanity, our common humanity. And without that, we won't learn to bridge the gaps. We won't learn to build bridges, to talk to one another. We will be isolating ourselves, and isolation is not the way forward. Just as I don't think sanctions is the way forward. We need to be talking to people that we don't agree with, rather than ignoring them.